Many people reach their 40s or 50s with an unsettling feeling that, despite all their accomplishments, something is still missing. This emptiness can feel confusing because, in theory, life is stable: solid career, established family, a certain financial comfort. But deep down, there's a discomfort, an unanswered question: is this all there is? Carl Jung believed that life is divided into two major phases. The first focuses on building external identity: career, status, social roles. The second, however, should be dedicated to self-knowledge and the search for meaning. When we ignore this transition, we feel like we're living a superficial existence. This video will explore how Jungian concepts can help you navigate this phase and find a more authentic purpose. After all, life doesn't end at 40. It may, in fact, just be beginning. Midlife should be a period of fulfillment. After all, it's a time when many have already built careers, started families, and achieved a certain level of stability. However, for many people, this phase comes with a sense of emptiness that's hard to explain. It's as if everything that once seemed enough no longer holds meaning. This feeling is not uncommon. Jung observed that when we reach midlife, we face an inevitable existential crisis. This happens because, up until that point, we've been conditioned to seek external validation, professional success, social recognition, clearly defined roles. But when these goals are achieved, we realize they don't fill the deeper space within the soul. This disconnection occurs because, over the years, many people build their lives based solely on the persona, the mask we wear to adapt to the world's expectations. If this mask becomes the only identity we recognize, we reach midlife not knowing who we really are. This emptiness can manifest in many ways: constant dissatisfaction, lack of motivation, emotional crises, and even physical symptoms like fatigue and anxiety. Some people try to ignore it, filling their lives with distractions, purchases, or superficial changes. Others dive into self-destructive behaviors, trying to escape this anguish. But this crisis is not an end, it is a calling, an invitation to look inward and embark on a new journey, that of individuation. Jung believed that, instead of resisting this change, we should use it as a portal to a new sense of existence. To understand this process, we first need to explore an essential concept: the persona, the identity we create to be accepted, but which can distance us from our true essence. From an early age, we learn that in order to be accepted by society, we need to mold ourselves to certain expectations. We adapt our behavior to the family environment, social circles, and professional world. This adaptation gives rise to what Jung called the persona, the social mask we wear to interact with others. The persona is necessary. Without it, it would be difficult to live in society. A doctor cannot behave the same way at the hospital and at home. A teacher adopts a different posture with their students. The problem arises when we confuse ourselves with this mask and believe that it represents our true identity. Over the years, many people build their lives entirely based on this persona. They become the good employee, the responsible father, the devoted wife, the successful businessman. But what happens when these roles no longer satisfy? When we realize that despite following all the rules, we still feel empty. This happens because the persona, however useful it may be, is not the totality of who we are. It covers other parts of the psyche, especially the shadow, the rejected and repressed aspects of our personality. When we ignore our shadow for too long, it manifests in unexpected ways: constant frustration, dissatisfaction with life, and even destructive impulses. To overcome the midlife crisis and find a deeper sense of meaning, we need to recognize that we are not just the persona we created. This is the first step in the process of individuation, the path to becoming who we truly are. And to begin this journey, we must confront what we have avoided for years: the shadow, the hidden part of our psyche that holds both our fears and our unrealized potential. According to Jung, the shadow is composed of everything we have rejected or repressed throughout our lives. These are impulses, desires, personality traits, and emotions that, at some point, we learn to consider unacceptable. In order to fit into social expectations and maintain our persona intact, we bury these parts in the unconscious. But the shadow never disappears. It continues to exist, influencing our emotions, decisions, and behaviors without us realizing it. Often it manifests through exaggerated reactions to other people. For example, if someone feels great irritation when seeing arrogance in others, it may be because they have repressed their own need to assert themselves and express confidence. In midlife, when the persona begins to lose its power, the shadow becomes impossible to ignore. We may feel anger, envy, fear, or sadness without understanding where it's coming from, or we catch ourselves repeating destructive patterns like procrastination, self-sabotage, or impulsive behaviors. The danger lies in denying the existence of the shadow. The more we repress it, the more power we give it. In some cases, this can lead to emotional explosions, existential crises, or even depression. But when we choose to face it, the shadow ceases to be an enemy and transforms into a source of growth. The key to integrating the shadow lies in self-observation and acceptance. We must recognize that we all have negative aspects, and there is nothing wrong with that. Our darkness doesn't have to destroy us. On the contrary, it can be a path to authenticity. And this is exactly what individuation proposes, a process of reconciliation with all parts of ourselves, allowing us to become whole. When we reach midlife and feel like something is missing, it's because our unconscious is calling us. This call manifests in different ways: a persistent feeling of dissatisfaction, an identity crisis, intense and symbolic dreams, or even an inexplicable desire to completely change our life. For Jung, this call should not be ignored. It is an invitation to look beyond the persona and the shadow to see our true essence. Those who answer this call begin the process of individuation, the journey to become who they truly are. But listening to the unconscious is not simple. From an early age, we were taught to prioritize logic and reason, sidelining intuition. However, the unconscious communicates through symbols, dreams, and deep emotions. Ignoring it only prolongs the feeling of emptiness. To hear this inner voice, we need to slow down and pay attention to the signs that arise in our everyday life. What fascinates us? What deeply bothers us in others? What patterns repeat in our lives? Answering these questions can reveal hidden aspects of our psyche. Accepting this call means entering unknown territory where we won't always have control. But it is precisely in this space of uncertainty that we find the true meaning of life. The concept of individuation is central to Jungian psychology. It is the process through which we become our most authentic and integrated version. For Jung, this path begins when we accept our shadow and begin to recognize the parts of ourselves that have been neglected or repressed. Individuation is not a goal to be achieved, but a continuous journey of self-awareness and personal growth. This process requires courage. Throughout life, we build an identity based on external conventions, such as family, social, and professional expectations. As we begin to seek our true essence, many of these elements start to crumble. We may go through crises, feelings of discomfort, and even fear of the unknown. However, it is precisely in this confrontation with our own limitations that true transformation is born. Individuation involves integrating opposing aspects within us: reason and emotion, the masculine and the feminine, the conscious and the unconscious. Jung believed that by reconciling these polarities, we achieve a state of balance that allows us to live with more authenticity and clarity. This path is not easy, but it is profoundly liberating. When we begin to know and accept all the facets of our psyche, we become more whole and capable of living a richer and more meaningful life. By embarking on this journey of individuation, we make space for a new way of living, where purpose and authenticity become the pillars of our existence. Accepting the journey of individuation brings profound and transformative benefits for those who choose to walk this path. By starting to recognize and integrate the various facets of ourselves, we begin to live with more clarity and purpose. Instead of being guided solely by external expectations, we learn to listen to our inner voice and follow what genuinely resonates in our hearts. The first benefit is inner peace. When we stop fighting against the parts of ourselves that we do not accept, a sense of relief and tranquility arises. Accepting our shadow and true essence frees us from a constant cycle of self-criticism and rejection. Furthermore, this acceptance allows us to make more authentic decisions. By living according to our true identity, we no longer have to try to please others or follow paths that don't make sense to us. We are free to chart our own course, taking into account our passions, talents, and deepest values. Another significant benefit is self-compassion. When we understand that we are imperfect and that our flaws are part of who we are, we become kinder to ourselves. This leads to a greater ability to handle difficulties and failures, as we realize these moments are part of the growth process. Accepting our personal journey also makes us more empathetic and understanding toward others. As we go through our own transformation, we learn to respect and support the journeys of others, creating deeper and more authentic connections. The journey of individuation, with all its challenges and benefits, is a path of profound transformation. By accepting our shadow, listening to the call of the unconscious, and integrating the various facets of our psyche, we begin to live more authentically and meaningfully. This is not an easy journey, but it is one of the most rewarding we can undertake. The first step toward this transformation is simple but powerful: the decision to begin. Choosing to look within, face the parts of ourselves we fear confronting, and make room for personal growth. It doesn't matter where you are now. What matters is the movement toward your true essence. By taking that first step, you open yourself to the possibility of a fuller and more authentic life. The process of individuation is not a final goal, but a continuous journey of learning and discovery. Each small step brings us closer to our true self and purpose. Remember, transformation begins when you decide to be true to yourself. Start today and allow yourself to live more freely, aligned with what truly matters.